Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Explain It. I am one of your co-hosts, Caroline, and this is my lovely other co-host, Ingryd Hernandez. Want to remind you all, this is a free bonus that we're doing. We just want to help a lot of people that are getting started in whatever it may be. Currently, this episode is going to be talking about real estate and wraps. Ingryd has more experience in wraps than I do, so we want to give you guys some pointers. But again, with this being free, we're going to ask you guys if you would please just help out two girls. Click that like button on YouTube, hit the subscribe, comment below, share this video with somebody you think might find some value out of it, save it, whatever you'd like. And then if you guys would please let us know where you need more support, what you're interested in. We've covered insurance on here for subject to deals. We've covered finding out what a motivated seller looks like. We've brought in guests that talk about door knocking. We want to make this the podcast to come in and get your questions answered. So please click the like and the subscribe. We are going to be taking your questions further on into this episode today. And I'm going to hand the reins over to Ingryd because she is the person who put together this entire wrap checklist. So if you know anybody who should be watching this live right now, tell them to jump on here, share the link. Ingryd Hernandez, what's going on? How is life in Chandler, Arizona?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that. I believe spring is kicking your ass.
I'm actually better this week. Last week was terrible. Yeah, I've been taking Zizal, like Mucinex. I don't know. Everybody's been. It's XYZAL or whatever.
Have you done the what are those people that they go and they put all those vitamins into your?
I did that when I was sick like a month ago. That actually really helps, but I'm good now. It was just like 2 days of getting my butt kicked where my eyes, my nose, everything was running, and it was like that ear, nose, throat thing. So no, I'm feeling good. But what the heck is up with the Arizona weather here? I feel like everybody's just getting
it's spring season and there's pollen in the air, so that's just the way it rolls here. Everybody came from all their places like Indiana, and we're like, oh, let's plant this tree that's not native to here, and it just cast out all kinds of pollen. So
I guess that's where hay fever and stuff comes from in the valley. Well, taking my medication though, but trying to get moving, that's for sure. Moving helps, but I was a gross individual. I just would like wake up and I was like all snotty and a little congested, but it's nothing compared to what it was last week.
Yeah, I would say I have been suffering, but not to any harsh degree. I've been waking up with like headaches, and I've been waking up with like runny noses. But at the same time, I've also let sugar incorporate back into my life. Yeah. So those are deadly combinations. I don't recommend it. But I am so excited about talking about wraps. Why? Because they're like the popular thing right now. A lot of things are not cash flowing, even though an interest rate is really, really low.
Well, you're probably going to get to it, but what is a wrap for the people that are just like, what the heck is a wrap? Are we wrapping Christmas gifts? Are we about to wrap how to buy properties? What is a wrap?
Yeah. So firstly, the word wrap is short for wraparound mortgage. So when you hear wrap, it's actually a shorter terminology. What you want to think about in a wraparound mortgage is that at least two mortgages will exist. So I always think about a burrito, or, you got your beans and then you got your tortilla and it's going to wrap around the beans. I don't know if that helps you visualize, like there's a first mortgage and then the second mortgage is going to wrap around that existing mortgage. So if that helps visualize.
I gotcha. So when you wrap it, does that mean are you able to make money on this? Does this just mean you're helping somebody? How does that work?
Well, there are certain investors way more advanced than me who use, I know of at least two types of wrap strategies. One is where you go and find a property that you can take over the property subject to. And we've talked about subject to, but subject to the existing mortgage. They wrap that mortgage around and they sell that to usually a homestead buyer. So somebody's going to live there as their primary home. But as I did with mine, mine in the Bash Bros. So to clarify, I actually partnered up with Eddie Marin. He goes by Eddie Marin, but I said, no, you're Marin. and Tyler Townsley. They're the Bash Bros out of Sub 2. And so their job in our partnership was to find the buyers and kind of get it to the finish line with the buyers. And so my job was acquisition and funding. So I funded it. I funded the deal, and then I actually acquired the deal. So anyway, in our deal, we actually found somebody who wants to use that property as a rental in the future. So they wanted to acquire the property with an LLC to start. The reason I am making that distinction is, and by the way, and we've put disclaimers in these shows and whatnot, just FYI, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not your CPA. I'm also not your agent, even though I am a licensed agent. I'm none of that. So with that in mind, you guys make your own decisions. This is infotainment. But when you are doing wraps that or when you're doing wraps, and meaning if your exit strategy is with a homestead buyer or primary home buyer, you have to consider that you might fall under the law of the SAFE Act, which is a federal law, and then another law called Dodd-Frank, or a set of regulations, I should say. And those regulations say, and I'll just summarize, like there's just certain things that you have to make sure that you're doing. Like you have to have an RMLO. Who is an RMLO? It's a licensed mortgage loan originator. I almost said officer. And so they are licensed to figure out whether or not that person qualifies for the loan that you're offering. So, but with wraps, you can actually lower your criteria. But something that's really important is that whatever wrap criteria you put together better be the same wrap criteria you have against everyone. So 2.5 times the income. I don't care about if maybe your credit score can't be lower than 400. I don't know. That is something that you would need to consider. So right off the bat, you should think about like, what is the criteria you're going to judge someone on before they can buy your property. But that's for homestead buyers. But when you sell it to an LLC, it's a little bit more wild west because it's considered investments. So the same criteria does not need to apply. Okay.
But you are able to make money on these. Like, even though they won't cash flow typically, you're able to wrap these and make.
Yeah. And actually they could cash flow. You just might decide you never want to be a landlord, but you want to make money like a landlord. So the reality is that wraps will pay you in more ways than one. So and again, it all depends on how you find your wrap and what the criteria for a wrap is. So the wrap that I found, it was a divorcing couple. They actually didn't tell me. They stopped making their payment in January. We were closing in February. So I had to get credit back for paying January for them, their January mortgage. But their payments were right where the rents were. So it was like a cash flow neutral. Gotcha. And in fact, I would argue that there's been pressure in that area for rents to be lowered. So there was potentially a negative of like $100, $200. So when we did the underwriting, part of what we had to figure out was, how do we make money now? How do we make money during? And those are the pieces that you put together on a wrap. So the money now has to do with the down payment. So when a buyer wants to buy your wrap, usually rule of thumb is that you're asking for 10% of the purchase price. You're going to ask them to pay for it. And these properties are generally sold at a premium. So if the typical house sells at like $350 in that area, I usually recommend not going more than $15,000 or $30,000 over the typical price point. That's the premium that they would eventually pay for the fact that they don't have to qualify through a normal lender, like through normal lending product. So on top of the fact that they're going to also pay a higher interest rate. So something that we have to be very conscious of is affordability. So yes, we want to make that cash flow, but is it reasonable to expect a higher mortgage from those individuals, that party? So that's something you think about when you're doing wraps. But I had this amazing conversation with Jonah Kirchen last week, and actually earlier this week. And I was like, man, we need to talk about wraps, because people are just assuming that they can go buy a sub 2 and they could just do it through a wrap if the mortgage that is owed is like at the rental, at the rents. And then I actually think where we are right now, people may need to think about, like, a funding partner like myself may have money left in that wrap for a while, in order to clear the expectations of the buyer. So I wish I had a whiteboard to write on, because I don't. I wish I did.
Okay. You do. You have one in your room. There's one in your office.
I do, but it's like stuck way up there. But anyways, let me give you the example that we just went through. So the house that I got under, that was buying, was $25,000 entry fee, basically. And that was what I underwrote for, right? That was supposed to cover paying us a small wholesale. Actually, you can get paid 3 different times. One is a wholesale fee, because if you're acquiring the deal and you're part of the acquisition piece of it, you get a wholesale fee. And then the second part of that is money on the down payment, hopefully from the buyer. So hopefully what the buyer provides back is more than what you had to do to enter the deal. And then third is the cash flow. So that's how you make money from wraps, 3 different ways. Pay yourself up front through a wholesale fee, get money, down payment that's higher than your total entry fee, and then third, the monthly cash flow.
Gotcha. Okay. And then you're going to have a checklist for us today too.
Yeah. So before you decide, I want to do this thing, I want to wrap and do get paid 3 different ways, things to consider. One is the demographics. So
guys, this is where you guys should put your list together and pull your pen and paper out and write these things down. And then afterwards you can ask questions on it.
Yeah. And this isn't comprehensive. So I would love if people have their own input, things to consider, whether they've done wraps or not. Please add them to the chat. But one of the things I talked to Jonah about when he was looking at he had just acquired his wrap, and he's like, Ingryd, what were you using to market your wrap? And I said, well, I know I'm a digital girl and this is a digital world, but wraps are old school. And I've interviewed and asked this question because I'm an analytical person. I want to know all the data. And I've asked many, many folks, how do you find your buyers? I would say a good portion, 80 to 90%, is bandit signs. You wouldn't think so, but it's the bandit signs that get them. So when you're doing your budget on what you're going to spend to market your wrap, you need to put money aside for bandit signs. And you're going to buy 10 to 15 bandit signs, and you're going to cycle through them because people are going to tear them up, throw them out. So some fundamentals of the bandit signs is...
What is a bandit sign, really quickly?
Yeah.
Because some people don't know.
Yeah. A bandit sign is a sign that isn't branded. So it doesn't actually say, hi, please send your offer to Total House Offer. Call this number because this is the company associated with this number. The reason it's called a bandit sign, it's because think about, what does a bandit do? A bandit has their eyes are covered. You don't want to know who they are. Yeah. Like, what is that? And that's exactly how these signs appear. They're very, very superficial. Sometimes they do have the address, but what they do is have a number. So a bandit sign is literally one of those for sale signs, or a big whiteboard that you say house for sale, or dueño a dueño, which is another way that we market these types of properties. But that sign is going to tell that potential buyer, hey, I have a house for sale and I'm doing it through seller financing. So Sorry. And then the bandit.
Spanish on the side?
Huh?
Were you reading the Spanish over there on the side?
Oh, I just read your private chat. So I was
okay. I saw the Spanish down there. I thought that's what you're.
No. And so the sign will say, we'll have like 3-bedroom, 2-bath, seller financing, or it'll say, hey, here's the, and then it'll have like a phone number. You always want a phone number, but the phone number is generally like a Google number, something that is not necessarily as attached to you. Of course, there is risk involved with putting out bandit signs, because if you have any city ordinances that don't allow you to have bandit signs and you get in trouble, you could get fined. But maybe the fine is $100, and maybe $100 fine is worth the risk if it means you're going to go find a buyer that's got $40,000 down payment. So you as a business owner have to understand the risk reward when doing something like that. I actually struggled with this with a property that we had in Round Rock, Texas. My partner was risk averse and was not willing to go put out bandit signs for our house for sale that was for sale on seller finance. And it was a struggle for me to get them on the same page. So this is something I didn't think about, that you have to kind of be on the same page. If you're partnering up with someone, who is going to be responsible for the bandit signs? Are you on the same page about when you're going to use them, how you're going to use them, and all that good stuff? We have lost our friend Caroline, by the way. She's not feeling good still. And so she's snuck away, by the way. So bandit signs, that's something that you need to put a little budget for. You're going to spend maybe $100, maybe slightly more. So just FYI. When you're underwriting to hold a wrap property, meaning I'm going to buy it and I'm going to hold on to it. And when I hold on to it, that's when we're going to mark it out to buyers to say, hey, does somebody want to buy my house? We normally would say 3 to 4 months, but I am seeing that these are taking longer, and it's anywhere from 5 to 6 months on the more conservative side. So what does that mean? If your mortgage is $2,500 a month, and if you have a private money lender who maybe lent you this money for you to be able to sell your house on a wrap, you're going to have to be able to include all of those holding costs as part of what you're going to underwrite. So to give you an example, when we underwrote ours, we were 2 mortgages short. So what did we do? We went halvesies because we're 50-50 partners, right? I paid one mortgage and then they paid the other mortgage month. And that was close to $2,700 that we were short. Excuse me, not $2,700, $4,700 that we were short. So it's something to think about when you're trying to figure out, how long do I keep this? Now, let's say you sell it in a month, and here you were putting money aside for 4 or 5 months. Good for you. Now you have more money for when you close. You'll have the money you need to pay back your private money lender, and you're probably going to end up making more money as a part of that down payment leftover, if you will. Hope I need to put my phone on silent because I'm getting a call. Let's see what else. So here's my checklist. So make sure you are using bandit signs and you're aligned on who's going to use the bandit signs and who's responsible for them. You want 3 to 4 months of mortgage minimum, but I'm seeing you might need to think about 5 to 6 months. You can list your properties on Zillow. Once you're the owner of a sub-2 property, leverage Zillow. You can market Zillow. You can use the for sale by owner process that Zillow has, or there is a couple of websites that cater to FSBOs, and they'll syndicate for you to say it's a for sale by owner property. Another thing that you should have as part of your team is an understanding of the demographics of where you're buying that property. The reality is, I totally believe in fair housing. You should give everybody a fair knock. But if you're buying properties where the demographics are higher in the Hispanic community, feedback I'm getting from a lot of folks who do this regularly, like that is a better target market, if you will, for folks simply because of some of the typical things that come along with selling properties on a wrap. I don't know if you knew this, but you can actually sell properties on a wrap for buyers who only have an I-10. An I-10 are folks who are documented. They come from, they're usually technically migrant workers. And so they're documented here, but they don't have a social security number. So that identification number that they're assigned allows them to own this property. So now there's a couple of issues on the refinancing side. So if you're going to sell to somebody who has an I-10, something you'd want to consider is, do I keep it under my LLC and then sell it on a agreement for sale, or in other states it's called contract for deed, or land contract. Those are all different types of verbiages used for agreement for sale. And so that's something you should consider, is who's my avatar? Who am I serving when I sell this property to them? And you need to understand those demographics and how successful that will be for you. Something I'm hearing that folks are not considering when they're underwriting the deal is a finder's fee. I actually recommend listing your properties on MLS if somebody on your team is an agent, or hiring a flat fee listing agency. A flat fee listing agency is anywhere between $200 and like $400. So that's a fee that you need to include. You need to consider. And then a finder's fee is if another, because I'll be honest with you, most folks that find you these types of buyers are agents. So that agent will bring you a buyer, and they're going to want to get paid for that service. So when you're underwriting, underwrite to be able to pay anywhere from 2 to 3% of your purchase price. Because if you're asking 10% down from the buyer, then you should be allocating 2 to 3% to give out as a finder's fee, if that makes sense. So who are the folks that can help you find these buyers? Because I get that a lot. First of all, we talked about using bandit signs. Go to Zillow. You definitely should use Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace and bandit signs are the top 2 ways to find your buyers. Another approach that we've taken is we'll put a radius around the property that we've purchased, and we'll look for agents who have actually closed deals in that area. So that's right. Old campaigning. Pick up the phone, contact those agents, let them know this is seller finance, and that they're looking for these buyers. Now, some brokerages will not allow certain agents to represent those buyers. Another way that you can still pay for their service is for them to bring you that buyer, and you pay that agent through a referral fee, which is completely legal. Like, they can get a referral fee. And for some brokerages, some agents that are with certain brokerages, that means that they'll end up with actually more money in the end. Because the brokerage I used to be with and the brokerage I am with now, they do not split my referral fee. So if I get a referral fee of, like, let's say $8,000, they don't take a fee against that. The only time they take a referral fee, or the only time they take a split out of my fees, is if I was acting as a fiduciary. So it's a true commission that I'm making. But yeah, that's another approach, and I highly, highly recommend that approach. We found, so now in our CRM, we have about 5 agents who say they specialize with these buyers. We just didn't have the type of house that their buyers were looking for. But they're like, if you get anything else, please let me be the first one you contact, because I'll probably have your buyer. I'm like, okay. So these are really fruitful relationships. Another is a mortgage broker. Like, if you know mortgage brokers that serve that area for where you're buying your wrap, did you know that 75% of people who try to get a mortgage and qualify for a mortgage are denied? And what are some of the reasons they're being denied? They don't have 2 years of history under 1099, or they do have 2 years of history under their 1099 self-employment, but they have expensed their way out of qualifying for a mortgage. So it doesn't necessarily mean they're not making enough income. They're not enough income, but from an IRS perspective, they don't qualify for a mortgage. And sometimes it's just credit score. And maybe they are making enough money, and maybe they just fail on the debt to income ratio. So these mortgage brokers are going to be your opportunity to find your buyers. Something that Pace told me once that has never left me is, if you're struggling to sell your wrap, but you know the numbers were really decent, you haven't talked to enough people. You haven't hustled hard and talked to enough people to find exactly what you're looking for. So I always think of that. I'm like, have I talked? Can I honestly say I've talked to enough people so that I know that I've exhausted all possibility of me finding who I'm looking for? And if I'm honest with myself and the answer is no, then I have to hustle harder. I have to have more conversations with more people and get the word out. Sometimes it's not about whether or not you have a good deal. It's more about, did you market well enough so that good deal could be bought? And then local business owners. Have you door knocked local business owners to find these buyers? Because local business owners, what's really beautiful about them is that they're really a part of the community. So because they're a part of the community, they know that Karen down the street, who's a really great, pet rescuer, really needs a property that can have all those pets to herself. And so she really wants a house that could accommodate all that. Or Bill over here needs an RV gate for his landscaping company and really doesn't want an HOA. So if you have something like that, that would be his number one ask. Bringing those things up because they legitimately came up when I was talking to folks. Like, they were literally looking for, and I'm faking the names, Kirk. So these were needs that buyers had. And then if my property did not meet those needs, now what do I have? I have buyers who told me exactly what they want. I can figure out how much do they have for down payment. And now I can go find another house that I could sell to them on a wrap, because now I know exactly what they need, right? So it's a cycle. And like Brent Daniel says, the more people you talk, the more doors will open. So are you talking to enough people? Have you opened up your mind to think about it in a much broader perspective? Because some folks that I've talked about, and especially I'll call them traditional agents, they put stuff on MLS, let MLS do the thing. But having MLS do the thing is not enough. You got to go door knock local business owners. You got to talk to people who are actually doing work like this and go get your buyers. They're out there for sure. But bandit signs, it's still the number one way that I have heard to find these wrap buyers. So those are the things I really, really wanted to talk about, because folks were not underwriting enough into their deals. So have money set aside for bandit signs. We're talking about $200 or $300. 3 to 4 months minimum of mortgage, although I recommend more like 5 to 6 months worth of mortgage. Making sure that you're allocating a finder's fee so that if somebody else finds your buyer and not you, you have something to compensate them with. Again, if you find your own buyer, then you can compensate yourself. Now you're going to make more in the end. Make sure you put about $300 to $600 aside to be able to list on things like FSBO.com, or be able to find a flat fee listing agency where they will just put your property out there to market on MLS, but they won't provide any other service. And then make sure that you're talking to enough people. So those are the ways that I think about marketing wraps. And one last thing too, if you're going to market your wrap on things on platforms, one of the ways that you need to think about doing this as well is have both English and Spanish. And there's tons of descriptions out there that you can just copy and paste, and then make your little changes that orient the house more to you. So I highly recommend join Facebook groups that that talk about seller finance, and that's their primary focus, or creative finance, because those are folks who are going to be looking for houses like this. But I do think it's important for you to have those marketing pieces in more languages. And maybe you're in California where there's a high propensity of certain Asian backgrounds. Maybe you want to have it in Vietnamese, in Chinese, in all the other Asian ways that you can communicate out those what you're marketing. So, losing my words. It's a little hot in this house. What kinds of questions do you guys have, though? How to find an RMLO? Is it state-specific business? So if you know Scott Horn, who is a creative finance lawyer out of Texas, and I actually have his little brochure right here. He runs the Owner Finance Network. See, Scott Horn, right here. So on his website, and if you email him at info@theownerfinancenetwork.com. By the way, I'm not compensated for any of that. Scott Horn's my guy. He's great. He's a great resource. He's been doing creative stuff for, 35 years or something like that. So guy knows game. He actually has an RMLO service. So that's who we were going to leverage until we found out that the people who wanted to buy the house were actually LLC owners. So we didn't have to focus on, or we didn't have to go through an RMLO process. But if you reach out to Scott Horn and his Owner Finance Network, if you Google, I believe there's Call the Underwriter is another RMLO service, calltheunderwriter.com. There is a fee involved with that. And actually you can charge that fee back to the buyer as a part of that, about that part of selling your property. So hopefully that helps, Kirsten. All right. What other questions do you guys have? Yara, those are the people I want to sell to. I think when I was talking about the Hispanic community, I think that's who you were talking about. How do you calculate what you want your buyer's wrap payment to be? Well, I'll tell you this, definitely more than what you're paying the mortgage. So part of that is science. Part of that is a little bit of art. So one is an affordability metric, right? When we were trying to sell this house in the city of Buckeye, we were trying to charge what's more of a premium interest rate of 8%, but we were finding that it caused the mortgage to be a bit higher. And so we got a lot of feedback. We got feedback to say that that was too high. And so we went back to the drawing board and we said, what could we live with? And once we reoriented it to what we could live with, obviously it had to cover the existing underlying mortgage, which, by the way, you have to disclose there's an underlying mortgage, and you have to disclose if there's a balloon. So don't forget that. There's also rules about balloons, and I'll get there in just a moment. But if you're going to charge that, you just have to make sure, and like anything, it's all negotiable. Maybe you wanted to charge $2,800. You have a really motivated buyer, but they're like, I can only afford $2,600. But your underlying mortgage is $2,300. Okay, can you live with making $300 a month instead of $500 a month? And you, as a business owner, need to make that decision. So that's something that I would think about as part of your underwriting. And like anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it. I'll be honest with you, we're not going to make a whole ton on this one every month. We're not going to make a whole ton on the down payment, but I learned so much, and that's invaluable. And so that's something you need to think about is like, okay, am I here to hit a home run every single time, or am I good with just a base hit? For those who play sports, talking about baseball. So for me, I just wanted to learn, what does it take to do this? And the base hit was fine with me. Okay, wondering how to qualify buyers though. So something you can, and maybe something I'll take away as an episode opportunity is, what do you want to make sure that you know as somebody looking for this type of buyer, like how you're going to qualify folks? Talk to the RMLO. The RMLO that you're looking to hire will actually tell you typical conditions. And then you can say, how strong and difficult you want to be to how flexible you want to be around certain conditions. And then put a spreadsheet together that kind of puts out those elements so that when you have multiple buyers, you really are picking the most qualified buyer. So hopefully that helps, Joel. There's things like debt to income, credit, income verification, right? Because maybe you don't care about credit, but if you have two buyers, one has really bad credit and one has really great credit, and they make similar income, maybe you want to choose the one with the really great credit because you know you're not going to have problems with them. So that is the way that you kind of keep yourself in the right side of how you're evaluating against fair housing rules. So you found a new place, but I found a new place of finding wrap buyers, religious and help groups. There was a lady who needs to find a home ASAP in 60 days, but she has no credit. Where in Texas? There's so many wraps. If you do have one in Texas, I say he's my cousin because his last name is Hernandez, but he's not my cousin. Christian Hernandez in Sub 2 runs through a whole bunch of wraps in Texas. You have Munif, Chai, Prakash, Lisa Martinez. These are all folks in Texas. And if you need to find a Texas deal, please come to me, let me know. And maybe we could work something out so that we can all eat from the same plate. This says, Tudo bem ou você? I have no idea what that means. I just wanted to. I think it means tudo bem, like everything good, right? It seems like that's what it would mean, but I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that. Maybe that's Portuguese. Yeah. I don't know. I'm guessing. One question as a connector, what are some do's and don'ts I come across gators for long and short-term gap funding, as well as closer buys? What's a good way partners with others? So this is not wrap related, but I will say something about gators. You need to be very careful about how you're gator lending because you may be crossing the line with usury laws. So in my opinion, if your gator lending conditions extend beyond the usury law, you're better to put a JV agreement because then now you're partners instead of just a lender. So food for thought when you're gator lending and you're charging higher than the usury laws allow in your state. So something to think about when you're gator lending. Hey, Michael, I know that you said you're getting a lot of wrap offers. Would you be willing to come up to StreamYard and we can walk through some of what you're doing? Are you not working out? Because you're always working out. Like, is it possible for you to come up here and stream with us and you can ask your questions about wraps? Is that possible, Michael? Let me know. Michael is an amazing real estate agent out here in Arizona. He focuses on folks that are transitioning. So maybe they're going into retirement or maybe they're passing away. A really beautiful service in terms of what they provide. So Michael does an auctioning process inclusive of the estate selling. So, the tables, the chairs, all the stuff that gets left behind. He helps sell all of those things along with the real property. So Michael, let me know in the comments if you can join us, and I will send you a link so that you can come up stage here and you could ask more specific questions, because what I'm seeing Michael doing, and I believe because some of his properties are really high priced, beautiful, beautiful properties, and many may command that much. But once we've now gotten into this rate issue, the whole point of rates going up is so that the Fed can make us put the prices down. That's the way it's supposed to happen. So with rates going up, it puts downward pressure for prices to come down. But if I'm a stubborn seller, I want my price, then how about we offer your price but using seller finance terms? And what I'm learning is in Sub 2, as Scott Horn says it, and again, this is not legal advice, but if you don't give a deed of trust and a promissory note to the seller that you're buying their property subject to, you're buying yourself a potential lawsuit because you're not giving them the rights to be able to foreclose on a property if you're not giving them the instruments to do so. And so that seller, let's say you stop paying as a sub-2 buyer and they don't have a way to foreclose on you. I mean, they don't, almost think of like ingress and egress. You need a way in and a way out. If you don't give them a way out, they could sue you for that. So one of the ways to avoid that is to put a deed of trust and a promissory note that mirrors the existing mortgage. And then you have terms around foreclosing procedures, often called a performance deed. So let's see. Yep, Portuguese, everything good, and you. Oh, that's what it meant. Okay. I suspected, I mean, I speak Spanish, but Portuguese reminds me of a mix between Spanish and Italian. And I used to speak Italian. So how do you determine how much is too much for a monthly payment in a given area? Just by talking with buyers. Yeah, I would actually look at rents in an area. So which Caroline has an amazing YouTube video that talks about how to find rents in an area using Zillow. So I highly recommend you go check out her page for that on YouTube. And if you can stay, I would say rule of thumb, and again, everything is different. Rule of thumb, if you can stay around $200 to $300 above your rents, that's probably the range that you'll be able to charge for a mortgage. So again, a lot of times these don't pencil out to cash flow. So maybe the mortgage is $1,800, rents are $2,000. So then you're charging maybe $2,300 to $2,500, depending on demand in that area. And now you're cash flowing $1,700. I think I started with $1,800. You're cash flowing $700, excuse me, instead of not cash flowing anything. And now you don't have to worry about toilets or windows. What you will have to worry about is active income. I'm not a CPA, but you are taxed differently than if that was a rental. If you acquire the house sub-2, what happens if the seller files bankruptcy after you close and you're in a wrap situation? If you acquire the house sub-2. So if you're acquiring this house sub-2 and you did a deed transfer, the house is yours and not the seller's. So technically nothing's supposed to happen. You're supposed to keep the house and you're good to go. If you bought the property on agreement for sale and the deed is still in the seller's name, you do want to have somebody who is really good at writing agreement for sales, put language in your agreement for sale that actually speaks to the bankruptcy. So you want language in your agreement for sales that says, should the seller go through a bankruptcy, that property should be omitted because they're technically not the owners. Hopefully that helps. Where would you search for RMLOs? Well, like I mentioned, the Owners Network, Owner Finance Network with Scott Horn, he has an RMLO service. There's another one called, actually, let's just do it together. I'll bet you I can find one. Let's see. I don't mean to sound crass, but honestly, Google is amazing, right? So let's find out. Let's see how difficult it is to find a property. So or an RMLO. Sorry, I have so many tabs open and they're all related to properties. Okay. So sorry, I can't see what screen I'm looking at when I'm on this screen. So RMLO, and then probably your state. Hey, look at that. Home, rmlo.us, your one-stop shop for residential mortgage loan origination services. All kinds of stuff. Pre-licensing classes, producing branch managers. I would say LinkedIn is probably a great spot to go to as well. I think we're sleeping on too much LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a lot of great business owner folks in the real estate business who you would probably want to have relationships with. So let's see if I can get back in the stream because I'm somewhere lost in all my tabs. Let's see. How do I get back to you guys? There's StreamYard. I almost lost you. Okay. I funded a deal to someone who's wrapping it, but he's asking for around 20% down, 12% interest, and a kind of a, ooh, nope. None of that is reasonable. Okay. You have to think about when you do a wrap and you need to, something happens with the buyer, something goes wrong. And now you're in front of a judge and you have to stake your claim as to why you asked for so much down payment, why you asked for certain mortgage payment, and can you defend your position. Now, investors are asked for 20% down, not primary home buyers. So I recommend never go past 10 to 15% down payment. And what I'm getting feedback is that a lot of the most down payment people are seeing right now is 8%. So if you're going past 8%, know that you're already getting to that. Like if you think about a bell curve, right? 8% is like, here's a bell curve over my head. Here's a bell curve. So the peak is 8%. Anything left of the peak, I guess to you guys, right of the peak, is less than 8%. You're going to get this is probably going to be a lot higher actually. And anything beyond 8%, you're going to have a lot less buyers who can actually afford that. So I don't think you should go really past 15%. Unless there's something about that area that's super unique and this is really easy to get at. Maybe it's $100,000 house. So what am I in 20 grand is not a whole lot. So that's something to think about. But in my opinion, if I was in front of a judge, it would be really difficult for me to substantiate what I'm offering as a 20% down payment. I think 15 really should be the cap. That's my personal opinion. Now, 12% interest, most usury laws across the land is around 10 to 12% cap. So I would look to see whether they're even legally allowed to charge 12%. And then if they're going to do a balloon, and this is a primary homeowner who's buying the house, it's actually illegal for them to require a balloon. That's my understanding. And again, I'm not a lawyer. So what we've done in our house that we just sold in Buckeye, we have a balloon of 10 years. So what we're doing is called a step-up mortgage basis. So basically an adjustable rate mortgage, an ARM. So year 6, the interest rate will increase an interest point. And then every year after, you have one interest rate going up until we hit the ceiling in Arizona, because we can't go past 10%. So we're going to stop at 9.95%. So for 3 years, that interest rate will continue increasing for the people that we're selling to. So the reason we do an ARM is because we're going to try to make it painful for them to have to pay a higher mortgage and instigate that refinancing. Now, ours is bought a little different. We bought the property sub 2, and we're going to sell on an agreement for sale. If they don't refinance by year 9, we're going to refinance for them because we're technically still on the deed. So now they're at 9.95%. I can go refinance. Maybe I get better terms on the existing, what's left over of the mortgage, and we'll actually make more money. So fingers crossed that's what happens. But that's the way that you can influence your your buyers a little to change their mind about refinancing. But again, you have to disclose that you have a balloon in your mortgage that sits below a wrap. And if you don't disclose that, you're just buying a lawsuit. Anyway, good luck with that, Yara. I'd love to know more and see how maybe I can help, because I will tell you this, people are sending me stuff and y'all's negotiating skills need to get better. Like, I don't mean to be rude, but why are you even bringing up a balloon with a seller? Don't bring up a balloon. Really, we're investors here. This is a marathon, not a sprint. We want things that are 30-year amortized. Like, that's just the legit thing to say. And if you're getting balloons, you're getting more problems when you're asking for balloons. But if you have to do a balloon, please have it be 10 to 15 years long minimum. Anything below that, like think about our real estate cycle. Our real estate cycle changes now more dramatically. And so a 10-year time frame allows things to get more settled should that the parts that come with that drama impact the terms that you're going into right now. So if you're going to put a balloon on it, try not to agree to a balloon that's less than 10 years, please. I got a property yesterday, but they have a 3-year balloon. Now, mind you, the 3-year balloon does come with an appreciation clause, meaning in 3 years, if the house doesn't have at least 30% equity, the buyer does not need to refinance. But if they do, refinancing isn't free. When you're refinancing as an investor, you're having to pay points. You're going to have to pay origination fees. Like there's things like fees to the broker. There's things that you have to pay. So what you're asking them to do is in 3 years or in 5 years, in your case, Yara, is to put more money into this. And as investors, like we're already struggling with the down payment. Why would we do that to ourselves? So no. Let's see here. Joshua, what do you think about just having realtors list your wraps and trying to work out some fixed fee or lower rate since you aren't cashing out all the equity? I think that's a fabulous idea, Joshua. Many brokerages are not allowing wraps to be represented by their agents, though. So that's why I usually say look for a flat fee listing service. And then if an agent brings you a buyer, then you give them a referral fee instead of a commission. Why? Why are brokers being this way? Because it's all about risk. And when you represent a buyer or a seller on a wrap, they have a 15-year reprieve, meaning if they didn't like how things went down, they have 15 years from when it was executed to still sue you with anything related to that wrap. So a lot of brokers don't like that because even though they have disclosure statements that say, hey, seller, you understand the due on sale clause, you understand all the things that impact wraps, they can still come back and say, nope, I'm suing you. You didn't represent things the way they were. And, wholesalers don't have to worry about that. People like who aren't licensed have to worry about that, but brokerages and people who are licensed do. So that's why they don't like wraps. Let's see. If the end buyer defaults on a wrap, what's the foreclosure process and how long would it take? That's an excellent question. And it actually varies state by state. In Texas, for example, you can foreclose somebody 30 days after they've missed their first payment. It's a very, very aggressive state to foreclose people in. And it's I believe one huge reason why you see so many wraps. Well, I think 2 reasons. You see so many wraps in Texas because then the risk is lower for somebody who's selling a wrap. Hey, I get the house back 2 months later and then I get to try this all over again, right? A down payment again, and now I get the monthly payment. So that's one reason. Another is now that they don't have lease options, I believe it is, available, or agreements for sales available in Texas, they try to figure out other ways to make money as investors, right? Investors always find a way, and wraps are that way. But it really just depends on your state. And something that should not be glossed over is how good your note is written for that wrap. So your mortgage note that's written for that wrap really needs to read like a legitimate mortgage that gives you all the rights as a bank does. That's why we're going through Scott Horn's office, because this is what he does for a living. He has all that documentation, and Scott Horn's office writes these documents across the land. Again, I don't have an affiliation with Scott. Maybe I should ask for an affiliate link, but he's been doing it for 35 years and he's a lawyer. So I trust in him to have the type of mortgage documents that will really hold us steadfast to what our rules are. So something to think about, to not be willy-nilly about who is going to write your wrap your wrap mortgage and make sure it has all the protections it requires from that state. So something to think about. We don't want a clown party full of balloons. Amen. Balloons are awful too. If ever any of you get me balloons, I'm going to be mad at you, even though you think you're doing something nice to me. Balloons, like legitimate, like helium balloons. They're awful for the environment. They're awful for animals. They're just plastics. Like, no. I get sent deals 1 to 3 year balloons all the time. Market is too crazy for that. Amen, Dustin. I 100% agree. Let's see. You said you buy it sub 2 and you sell it for agreement for sale. Just checking. The wrap will be on an agreement for sale that you still have the ability to refinance on your side. Correct. That's right. Good check. So Joshua, good feedback to Yara. 20% down and 12%. 20% down and 12% as an interest rate is generally for properties that are $75,000 or less. There you go, Joshua. That's a good perspective. Again, be mindful that you're not crossing into usury laws and you might be actually doing something illegal. I thought a wrap meant we, as the wrap seller, would no longer own the home, so we can't refinance later. Okay. This is an advanced wrap option. So yes, normally, Kirsten, you would not leave your name on the deed. But on an agreement for sale or contract for deed, you would leave your name on the deed. You're not the homeowner. So from like a benefits perspective, like that homeowner can claim all the taxes. They're actually responsible for the taxes. That homeowner can do depreciation if they're renting out the property and they want to take advantage of depreciation. I actually talked to another real estate lawyer yesterday who confirmed that for me because it's been a question on my mind as I try to finish up my taxes. Yes, you can depreciate on properties that you own on agreement for sale. So this property, we would be named on the deed and we will sell on agreement for sale. But because we're still on the deed, we're going to have language in our agreement for sale that allows us to refinance the underlying mortgage should we need to. That's why you need professionals to write the language that goes on your agreement for sales or your subject to deed of trust and promissory notes. You need to be able to protect your rights to do that. And in our scenario, because there is a balloon, a refinancing is going to be required. But our balloon is 10 years out because I negotiated well enough. Just FYI. Okay. Texas should have a football team called Texas Raps. That's right. Well, guys, it is 2 minutes till 5, and I can start wrapping this up unless you guys have more questions for me. I think I've covered all the questions. I try to have Michael come up here to join me on stage, but he never. Michael Moore, I'm really sad that you didn't join me. But let's see here. I would assume the default you'd want to do in an agreement for sale to the end buyer versus a straight wraparound mortgage with deed transfer. I would assume the default you'd want to do is an agreement for sale to the end buyer versus, I don't understand what you're saying. I'm sorry. This has been awesome. Thanks, Dustin. So like and subscribe, everybody. Here for free 99. I don't know if anybody's hit the like button while you're watching this. I would really appreciate it if you do. Make sure you share it. We do try to go into more detail than most podcasts around some of this information because if you're anything like me when I was getting started, people didn't actually go into very deeply into resources or things to consider. And me and Caroline are trying to be as thoughtful as we possibly can to kind of go in a layer deeper so that we can be a really great resource. So just an FYI. Oh, wait, what Joshua say? I'm saying, why would you opt for a deed transfer than just doing an agreement for sale on all wraps? Amen, brother. I actually think it's a better approach. And actually, it's something that Scott Horn toots around. Like, he's like, just do agreement for sales and control the deeds because you'll have less problems. So I do agree. If you're going to do wraps, just do them on agreement for sale. I find them to be less of a headache. So, or he said that. So I would agree. Yep. Everybody make sure go and say hope you're doing okay, Caroline. I think spring's kicking her butt here in Arizona. Me too, but I'm a little runny nosy. If you guys have topics for us to cover, please share in the comments on this page or DM me and Caroline. We would love to know, like, what are you guys struggling with? What do you need more support on? We're going to have Kent Hay. I don't know if I said his last name right. Who focuses on affordable housing. I'm going to see if we can get Abraham Gray back on here to talk more about pad split, because I think that's the new shiny object right now. And then we have a few other guests that cover a few of those topics that I think would benefit all of you to know more about. So anywho, thank you so much. Again, like, subscribe. This is free 99. We really appreciate you being here, and we'll talk to you later.